Hi and welcome back to another episode of the Canary Room. Episode 5 today. We've got a very special guest in the shed. She's going to stay behind the camera. Taylor is with us, watching us, how we put the show together and hoping to learn a few things about, certainly not canaries from me, but maybe cinematography from Dan, our erstwhile cameraman. There he is. There's Dan's thumb again. Coming up on the show today, we're going to go around the room. We'll have a look at progress in the various nests. We're on the road. We've got a repeat visit to Alan Haureys, so that's some lovely footage of Alan's birds to show you. We've got one of my favourite parts of the show, the Redpoll diaries. That's coming up later. Lots of exciting news in the Redpoll diaries this week. Return of the regular feature, bird of the week. This time round, it's a young Norwich, an absolutely stunning bird that I'm really looking forward to introducing you to. From the mystery nest, it's out on the sticks now, and it's taking some really lovely shape. We'll go around and have a look at some of the plans, the cage configuration that we've had to change, because we've got so many young in the Canary Room now. Top tips is, this week it's the battle against mite. And how we prepare and clean the cages and try and keep on top of them. We had a lot of questions into the show over the last few weeks, and particularly with the warm weather. We've got the Canary Room flashback, and we'll finish as always with question time. As always, sit back and enjoy the show. So we mentioned it in the last episode of the show. That was a mammoth episode. Let's hope today is somewhere along the same kind of lines. The hammer, the drill, and my DIY skills have been put to the test, and this that was a shelf is now 4 cages. So you can see here, got different cage fronts on actually, and that's just because they were spare cage fronts that I had. We've got some of the first round fifes just in pairs, some of the birds that I really like the look of. We'll look at those in more detail over the next few episodes though. So we've added another 4 cages here in the Canary Room. What we've also done is we've moved some birds out. So a pair of the reds have gone to a very good friend of mine, John Evans. John's having a particularly challenging season. And what I've wanted to do is try and give him a bit of a lift. So the reds had nested, they were on eggs. So I've taken the nest pan and the pair of reds back to John's, or over to John's rather. And he will use them to help breed and rear some of his fifes, so we can get a few more birds on the sticks. There's a couple of hens of the 5 hens that had come from John's originally, or certainly one of them had. They've gone back over to John's as well. They will breed and take another round. I've got what I need and want out of them, to be honest. So I'm in need of cage room in the Canary Room. That'll become evidently clear when we look at the Redpoll diaries. And what I've also done as we come towards the sort of climax, if you like, of the season, is I have put some of the cockbirds, half a dozen of the cockbirds, and we'll take a look at them now. They're in a flight cage, so they're still very fit, they're still ready to breed, but I've finished with them for the year and we needed to make some space up. As always in the Canary Room, there's thrills, there's spills, and there's tragedy. I've had to switch things around with the Norwich because we had a firework display. It was May, the end of May. I'm not quite sure what the celebration was, but I came in the following morning to find that the dark Norwich buff cock had been spooked by the fireworks and we'd lost him. Absolutely devastating. Don't know why people have to run fireworks throughout the year. Certainly, you know, when it's November time, you can put lights on, night lights on. This came with absolutely no warning. And it's not the first time I've lost birds to fireworks. So, bit of tragedy. We've got 4 young off him. We'll see them a little bit later on as we go around the room. So, let's take a closer look at the cages and we'll see some of the cockbirds in the flights. So it's time for our first feature of the week. We're going back on the road. This week we're taking a return visit to Alan Haureys, where we went to pick up a cobalt Redpoll hen. More of that in the Redpoll diaries. But we take a look now at some of the footage that we shot there. Alan has got one of the most amazing setups I've ever seen and some absolutely stunning birds. Let's take a look at them now in some of their flight cages. So one of the first shots that we've got here, one of the first bits of footage, is in one of Alan's bigger flights. It's not the biggest flight he's got by any stretch of the imagination. There are 3 pairs in here. There is a pair of goldfinches. We can see the goldfinch flying around. There is a pair of twites as well. I think we get a little shot of the twite on a feeder. There's the redpolls. I'm zooming in now, and you can see the live food that they're fed. And also that there's, that's the twite just coming up off the floor. The different feeding stations in there, and that's so that the food doesn't go off, because it can get quite warm up at the top. So that's a fabulous flight. Next then, we've got to look at one of Alan's pair of redpolls. It's a pied cock, just running up and down the perch, and a hen slightly in the background. She's got 3 white feathers on her, so she's almost pied as well. But this is a really, really lovely pair. She's just coming into shot now. One of Alan's 13 flight cages that he's got. In the next one, real favourite of mine, goldfinches. He's got chevels and pea-throats, and these are just stunning quality birds. Not doing a great deal, not moving a great deal, but absolutely beautiful to look at. I can assure you it's a different shot, but it's another pair of goldies. I think this is the Chevy cock. Stunning bird, really settled, not wild at all. One of my favourite British birds, and I was introduced to it by Alan, and this bird is almost stationary, but I can assure you it is alive. It's a twite. There's a pair of twites in here. Absolutely lovely birds. Bred a twite mule last year. Another shot of some goldies. So I think there was 3 lots of goldies in Alan's flight cages. He's got them in breeding cages as well. More twites, another pair of twites. I think there was 3 pairs of twites. They're almost motionless. I can assure you this is video, it's not a still. Absolutely lovely birds. Then this next shot, and Alan's hand very quickly, it's a goldfinch chick. It's about 2 days old. We've got a very quick shot of the man himself. The very quick shot, it's quite camera shy, Al. And then we went into his birdroom. So Alan's got a mixture, and we've seen it when we last went there. He's got a mixture of flights. He's got a fabulous bird room with stunning cage set up in it. This next shot's not for the faint-hearted. It's some of Alan's mealworms. They are in a big tray in the bird room. He feeds these to all of his British finches. You'll notice that there's half-eaten apples in there. That's just to keep them at bay, to keep them fed rather. And these are mini mealworms. So I've done a very quick pan now of some of the cages. These are Alan's cobalts, his cobalt redpolls. You can see that he's got sort of false green on the outside of the cages to hide the nest sites. At the very bottom, just out of shot, there's some goldfinches. And then we finish off here with an absolute darling little hen, little redpoll hen, a pied hen. She has 4 eggs with a very good normal cock. Always a real pleasure to spend time with Al. Always a real pleasure to see his setup. British birds will naturally come into condition a little bit later. He has some stunning goldfinches, some stunning redpolls, amazing twites, some absolutely stunning birds, and what he doesn't know about British finches, it frankly isn't worth knowing. It's time for my favourite part of the show. It's the Redpoll diaries. It's the Redpoll diaries time. We've been round to Alan's. You know, in the last episode we talked about picking up another cobalt hen. We have got an absolutely stunning specimen in the cage just behind me. We'll try and pick up some shots of her in a minute. She is darker than the previous bird that we have. An absolutely stunning, stunning bird. That's not all. You'll notice the cage configuration behind me has changed somewhat. We've got some of the green on the outside of the cage. Is a tip I picked up when I was at Alan's. We picked up another pair of lesser redpolls while we were there. We've also picked up a trio of goldfinches. Now, I adore goldfinches. I've owned them in the past. It was a very, very long time ago. We'll have a look at those before we conclude the Redpoll diaries. Not a great deal to report, to be honest, in this, apart from the fact that we've got some new birds. The cinnamon cobalt hen we've moved. We've paired her back with her original partner. We've put a nest site in there. She seems intent on building into a grit pot. So I've seen her shuffling and squatting down into the grit pot. Still nothing from the lessers behind me. You'll notice in the last episode that they were showing a real interest in the nest. They have done, but they've not gone to nest yet. I've put another nest site in for them to see if that can't stimulate interest, and I've put a little bit more privacy around there as well. I've seen them feed, I've seen them beak each other. They can't be that far away. It's early June now, so they hopefully will go down quite quickly. The pair we've talked about in here, and then the final pair is Alan has gifted me, which is incredibly generous of him. The cockbird had damaged its leg on with its ring. It's a stunning, stunning cockbird. It's an old cockbird. The colour on it, the markings on it are superb. We'll have a little look at him in a minute. There's nest sites in all of them. I am hopeful that we'll get a nest from them this year. I'm hopeful we will get some redpolls. We have had some out. Fortunately, we've not got any over a couple of days old. But I've got everything crossed now. I'm really pleased with this setup. And as the canaries are coming towards the end of their breeding season, gives us an opportunity to focus a little bit more now on here. I'm going to put some nesting material in to all of the birds. So we'll have a quick look at that. And then I've got some live food to give them as well. So we'll have a little look at that. So we've now got 4 pairs of redpolls in the shed. Let's hope that we have some luck with them. They are stunning birds, absolutely stunning birds. Just want to show you quickly, you can see that they've got nest sites all sort of covered, sheltered away. 3 different types of nesting material that we've got for them here. Got some animal hair, got some jute string with a little bit of Sharpie in, which is the white. And then we've got some coconut fibre. Now I'm going to trim the coconut fibre because it's a little bit long at the moment. They are all picking up now. Some of the birds have only been in the canary room less than a week. So they've not been in long. They're already taking an interest in the nest, which is a really, really encouraging sign. We're going to pop some of this material in. And then I'm going to show you some of the live food that we feed them. And I'll introduce you very, very quickly, slightly nervous, to the goldfinches. So with the introduction of goldfinches, which we'll see in a second, comes the introduction of some live food. Now we have been feeding the redpolls some frozen pinkies, which are just little tiny maggots in their egg food. I'm going to give them some mealworms as well. We'll have a closer look at these little bad boys in a minute. These are medium mealworms. Ideally, I'd want small ones, but I can only get medium ones locally. They're not too bad. If I take the lid off, and we'll have a closer look at these in a second, they're in a bran. That just keeps them clean. You can see they're wriggling around. Some of them have turned into pupies. That will happen. Particularly important when there's young in the nest. So we'll have a closer look at these and then we'll feed some. So I'm only going to put 3 in for each of the redpolls at the moment. I'm just going to pop these in here. I'll do it with all 4 cages. And with any luck, it's the first time I've fed them live mealworms. It's certainly not the first time they'll have had them. With any luck, we should see them trying to devour these little things. We'll wrap up this week's Redpoll Diaries with some of my favourite birds. We've got a trio of goldfinches from Alan. Again, he's looked after us incredibly well. I've always been a little bit wary about bringing goldfinches in because Alan coins a phrase, they're not afraid to die. They've been in the canary room for over a week. I check every morning, and the first cage I look at. So far so good. These are stunning specimens. They are big, they are beautifully coloured. They're normal, so they're not Siberian goldfinches, but they are of a really good strong size. Alan's got a great stud of goldfinches, as we saw in our on the road feature a little bit earlier on. I'm going to feed them some mealworms. I'm going to put some nesting material in. There's a cock and 2 hens, although I've just got a pair together and I've got a hen separated off. I'm just keeping her steady and keeping her as a spare hen. Obviously, if we could breed goldies this year, that would be fantastic. If not, I'm sure we'll go back at some stage and pick another cock goldfinch up and have a couple of pairs of goldies as well. I may have to extend the canary room. We just won't tell Claire. So I'm going to pop this in now, and let's have a look at these absolutely stunning, for me, one of the most attractive of all of the British finches. It's the goldfinch. The goldfinch is an absolutely delightful bird. Another one, and this week's bird of the week. And who knows, if we breed goldies, we might do some mewling in future years. It's a young Norwich. One of the first Norwich that we've rung in the canary room this year. We've got 4 away and feeding themselves. There's another 2, which we'll have a look at when we go round the room in a moment. They're also out of the nest and feeding themselves. And then there's one which is probably about 5 or 6 days old. Maybe coming up to 7 days old now, so far too young to count that one. This is bred out of the clear Norwich hen and the ticked marked cock. I've run the tick marked cock back with the hen, and we'll check on that nest in a little bit. But this is a lovely bird. We haven't taken it and started colour feeding it yet. With the reds, which we'll see in a minute, they're starting to take on the colour. We use Carophil red, and we'll use that for the Redpolls as well. With the Norwich, we're going to use Carophil orange. Now I'm going to have to order some because I haven't got any in the shed at the moment. So I'll order that in the next couple of days. Again, I'll just give it in the egg food. I'll give it to the adult birds as well, just to get a nice orange colour on them. See, it's quite nicely marked. It's a sort of spectacle marked bird, this. It's in a British show cage. I have got Norwich show cages. They're just in the garage at the moment, though. It's a lovely little bird, this. It's got some real size to it. Now, you know, it's only probably 6 weeks old. As I say, it's the first one that we've run. Nicely marked bird. For the mewling, and that was one of the main reasons that the Norwich are in here. Ideally, you want a darker bird. We've got some darker birds, some heavily variegated and almost a self bird. Don't know yet whether they're cocks or hens. Not sure with this bird yet. I'd be inclined to say I think it might be a cock, because it's quite bold and it's got a sort of darker colouring underneath its throat. And that's normally, particularly with young canaries, that's normally a telltale sign. But a handsome beast all the same. Ladies and gentlemen, this week's bird of the week is this delightful little baby Norwich. That was this week's bird of the week. We're going to go around the room now. Now, as we were filming bird of the week, just behind us I saw the Redpoll's mate. That's another pair that I've seen mate now, which is great news. So hopefully eggs will come very soon. At the end of last week's show, we saw how we colour fed the reds, and we're going to take a little look at them now before we see the Norwich, and we'll see them colouring up with the Carophil. So you'll notice that, you know, as birds molt through, They don't all colour up at the same time, so all the feathers don't come red at the same time. Obviously, they don't shed all the feathers at once, and so they don't replace them all at once. But you can start to see the colour coming through on them now. We'll take a little look at them, and then we'll have a look at the Norwich. So we've just met one of these little beasts in Bird of the Week. All 4 Norwich together now. We saw these in the last episode of the show, the 3 in the nest. You can see, although they're probably about a week behind, there's not that much size difference between them. Darker birds, so there's a variegated at the back and then 2 heavily variegated. Too early to say whether they're cocks or hens. What I've done with the Norwich is I've paired a different pairing together for the final round. We lost a Norwich cock, so there'll be half brothers and half sisters of these young as well. We've got 4 here away feeding themselves. In a second we'll see that there's another 2 that have jumped the nest. We'll have a look at those in a moment. And we've got 1 still as a youngster in the nest. So I set myself really a target of half a dozen Norwich out of 2 hens. We'll see. Anything can happen with the Norwich. They are susceptible to going light, which is why I've held them back on the paper, so they're being moved on a daily basis, just to build that little bit of strength in them. That's the Norwich. We pan to the left, or my left, your right. We can see that we've got the whites that again we saw in the last show. We've got 3 white fifes away. They are absolutely gorgeous. There's a clear and then 2 lightly marked birds. I am a real fan of these. I know Dan the cameraman is a fan of them as well. Their mother, who Dan has affectionately called Snowy, has gone with the same cock again. She's got 4 eggs and I set her yesterday. So hopefully the next time we film they should be coming out of the nest, or certainly coming out of the egg rather. These are little beauties, and then we'll just pan round and take a look at some more nests. So in the last show we looked at cages 10, we looked at cages 11, 6, 12 and 18. We've still got young in all of those cages. We have lost 1 or 2 along the way. We'll cover that off in today's top tips. You can see in cage 5 there's a cinnamon. She's on 4 eggs now. I'm hopeful that we'll get some more cinnamons there. In cage 11 we've got 4 beautiful looking chicks. We've got 3 fifes, and then we've got a little Norwich with a little cap at the bottom. That's the same way bred as the little spectacled Norwich that was Bird of the Week. In cage 12 there's 4 little fifes, and again another variegated Norwich which is related. One looks like that's going to be a buff potentially. This looks definitely like it's going to be a yellow. I imagine it's going to be a yellow cock because of the depth of colour of it. And then cage 18 we've got 4 really nice little green fifes. They're off this week's Canary Room flashback bird, which we'll have a look at in a moment. Pleased with how these are developing. I've got cockbirds in with them all of the time now, to go for the 3rd round with these birds. A little bit more of that later on. We did talk in cage 12 about running the blue cock with her. I did think about it, I toyed with the idea, but I decided to run the variegated cinnamon carrying cock. He's produced some really nice young for me. And I thought I'd give him another opportunity. He's got a couple of young in cage 10. He's got another hen down in cage 9 with some full eggs. So one of the reasons I'm doing that, although I won't know whether the cockbirds that he produces are carriers or not, what I will know is that anything with pink eyes, anything that comes out of the nest with pink eyes is going to be a hen. So I'm looking to breed, a number of cinnamon hens for next year. I certainly won't be keeping them all, but I will probably look to replace both of the cinnamon hens that we've had this year. One of them will go back to Graham's. That's the hen in cage number 5. That's where it came from originally. The other hen was a little bit off colour, so I've moved her. I've put her in a flight cage now with the Norwich hen, who's the mother to the 2 Norwich in here, and the blue hen. And she's in there for a very, very good reason. In the blue hen hasn't done anything this year, so I've just retired them. The cinnamon hen was a little bit under the weather, a bit up and down. Certainly, I've got 3 chicks off for this year, which are nice. There's absolutely no point in ruining it for next year. I may well keep her for next year, depending if she wants to. Okay. Let's have a closer look at the chicks in these cages now. This little fella, you can see he's absolutely bouncing. It's a heavily variegated buff Fife cock. It's green ring number 11. He was the Cheshire Classic winner. Best Fife, best Canary, best bird in show. A couple of years back he was best, won the heavily variegated buff cock class up in the west of Scotland. A really, really stunning bird. We've bred, last year we bred a really nice heavily variegated buff cock bird off him, which we kept with the self-green yellow hen who's in cage 14. This year we've got some young in cage 14. The hen is a little bit flighty, so we won't probably see them today. We've got a bird of the week out of this fella, and we've just seen him in with his other mate, and there's 4 chicks in there, and she is actually nesting again, so we're going to get 3 rounds out of her this year. He's green ring, so he's 3-year-old. We'd look to keep him for next year, but we first met him in episode 1 of the show, complete with his rosettes. And he looked good then, he looks great today. He's had a little bit of a bath. We looked to run him last year with the best green yellow hen in the shed, which we did, and we produced a couple of young out of them. A couple of really nice young, although only one would make it through to adulthood. He's been a very, very, very useful cockbird to us, and he's going to be a foundation now for the green line moving forward. His son is paired up with a hen who I think has laid for the first time today. We'll check that nest a little bit later on in the show, and that will be the next generation of this bird. So I'm hoping that he has. What I wanted to do was breed, a volume of birds out of him this year, in case he doesn't make it through the molt. He'll certainly be a bird that I look to keep. You can see he's nice and short. He's very, very, very fit. It's our flashback this week, a heavily variegated buff cock, green ring, number 11. We're now on to this week's top tips. So it's early June now in the Canary room. One of the greatest challenges for canary breeders, for breeders of any birds in this kind of an environment is mite. It's an almost constant battle which requires vigilance. Cleanliness is no guarantee at keeping them at bay. The weather this year has been crazy. We've had some of the hottest days on record here in the UK, so it's been stunningly warm, and then we've had rain and the weather's been up and down. The heat is a magnifier, if you like, for mite. Today's top tips, we're going to show you how we clean the cages down. Now, I do know that we've got both northern mite and red mite in the canary room. Now, many canary fanciers will tell you they've never had a mite, they've never seen a mite in their entire life, and to be honest, I'm not sure that I believe them. It is a vigilance, it's about keeping on top of things. I'm going to show you some northern mite and some red mite in a moment. But before I do, I'm going to talk to you about one of the tips if you see northern mite in particular in the nest. Now, in cage 15, I had a hen who was sat on a nest. It was at the front of the cage with 3 chicks in it. No obvious signs of mite in the nest. She was feeding the chicks, they were developing nicely. I noticed that they weren't developing at probably the rate I'd expected them to. Now that was the first telltale sign for me. I powdered the bird and I powdered the nest. Now I didn't spray the nest, and I'll show you the powders I use in a moment. I didn't spray the nest because the nest with very young chicks in would just kill the chicks. I'd been working late. I came home that night to see the nest literally crawling with northern mite. It was a heartbreaking sight. The first thing you do is you question everything that you've done. Now you can see, you know, the cage litter is cleaned on a regular basis here. The canary room, the birds are in good condition. They're kept well, they're fed well, they're treated very, very well. What I did, and my top tip for you, was to take each of the birds individually, to get some lukewarm water. Really important that it's warm and not cold, because the shock of the cold would kill them, and submerge the entire chick for a second in the water. That had the effect of taking all of the mite off them. I then used a hairdryer, believe it or not, to warm them back through, and then I placed them, because it was very clear at that stage that the hen had just gone disinterested, under 2 other nests. Now that was 3 days ago. I'm pleased to say that they're still alive and still being fed. So we're going to have a look at the little critters now. I've got some, as I say, that I've kept in, I've caught up. We'll have a look, and then we'll look at the treatments that we use to get rid of them and to clean the cages down. So first and foremost, let's meet the little pests. You may well be able to see in this little plastic dot is some little grey specks. There is a large number of them in here. The majority of them aren't moving, but they are northern mite. Now, northern mite will walk from one host to another. They generally live on the birds, and they live in the bottom of the nest pans. You can see that they will walk around the edges of the nest pans, and that can be a telltale sign that they are in a nest. They'll come out in the day, they don't just come out at night. They are horrible things. They generally live on the birds. You will see them swarming, and you'll know when they're looking to move to a new host. You'll see them swarming on the top of the cage in a circle. Now, what can be really strange with northern mite is that you can see them in one cage and then not see them in another. But what you've got to do with northern and any other type of mite is assume that they're everywhere and treat everything with the same level of vigilance. So those are northern. We'll pop these away and we'll see if we can't see any reds. Now, red mite will feed on a bird, but generally they'll hang around in the gaps. You can see that there's one there and one there on my hand. There's one here as well. There's a couple of younger ones there. They're not red at the moment, and the reason they're not red is because I've taken them from a cage where there isn't any birds, so they haven't fed. They go red because basically they suck the blood out of your birds. They are a nuisance. You can see that one's decided to have a little run. You can see the speed that it runs. So that's one of the red mites. These will live in nooks and crannies, in cages. They live in particular in the perches, where the perch joins the cage front. That's a favourite hiding place of them. So we've seen the little critters. We know that they're there. I've left the cage for a couple of days just to try and attract some in, which sounds a little bit crazy. Let's show how we go about trying to get rid of them. So one of the treatments that we use in the canary room, particularly when there are young in the nest, now there are a couple of young in here, a cinnamon and a lightly variegated, is Johnson's anti-mite insect powder. I'm told now they've stopped making this, although you can still get it. There's obviously still a supply around. I'm also told Johnson's baby powder, talcum powder, has exactly the same effect. So it's just about drying the mite out. Now, there's young in the nest here. I wouldn't spray these with another product that I use simply because they're too young, but what I will do is just give a light little puff on here. It won't harm the birds. The mite don't seem to like it. I know there will be mite in this nest. In fact, as we're talking, I can see mite moving around here, so we'll give them a spray. And we'll we'll do our best to get rid of them. But that's one of the first things that we use, which is Johnson's anti-mite insect powder. What I wanted to show you quickly before we clean the cages out, because we've got different treatments and different solutions that we use to try and manage mite, depending on the stage. So you've just seen me powder the young chicks. They're in the nest. This nest here is the nest I was talking about earlier, where there was an infestation. Now that came and it happened in the space of 4 or 5 hours. So I powdered the birds, I'd gone out, I was later home than I'd planned to be. And when it came back, there was an infestation in this nest. Now I took the nest away, I took the young out, and basically I sprayed this nest with bleach, and I've kept it here to show you. You can see that there's a yellowiness in there. Now that's basically the dead mite, and you can see all around the edges there's lots of little black dots, and that's the dead mite. If you look inside, and there's not a lot of nesting material in here, and this cage pan was cleaned, so I changed the pan as the young hatched. You can see that there are just little rows and rows of little black dots, which are also the mite. So flash bleach, which I'll show you in a second, is one of the things I'll use, and I'm going to bleach this cage now. And what's really important is obviously there's no birds in this cage, so it's not for bird rooms. I use it because it's effective. It will get rid, it will kill on contact the mite, but I'll show you the other solutions that we use as well to try and manage the little critters. So you can see this cage has had birds in it up until about 48 hours ago. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take all of the cage furniture off, but I'm going to leave the perches on for now. I'm going to take the hopper off. That's a place where mite can hide and hold. I'm going to take these off now. You'll know that we put these on for the hens in the year, and I'll take this off. You can see as I take this off, it's all about nooks and crannies. There's a couple of mite on there. We'll get rid of those in a minute. If I look here and we zoom in, you can see that this is the grit, which we replace on a weekly basis. But underneath, if I lift it up, you can see that there's lots of little horrible crawlies. So we will put this down, we'll give it a spray, and then we'll spray the cage. These are red mite on here. This is another solution that I use, which is the spray. I will use this on the birds, just not the young birds, because it's too strong. It kills on contact. So if I spray, you should see immediately that those things, those little mite there, are now no longer with us. So a very, very useful solution, and certainly for use on birds. Bigger birds, do not use it on young chicks in the nest, because it will have a detrimental effect. You can see now there's a solution in here, there's a chemical ingredient in here, that parts of this are starting to turn green, and that is basically the mite dying. What you'll see, and if you have a look in a second at this cage behind me, it's a relatively clean cage. It's got relatively clean cage furniture in it. I'm going to use the flash bleach on that cage now, and we'll see just how much green appears. So it's important when you do this, obviously, that there are no birds here. I'm going to be very careful. There are young in the nest in the cage below. I'm going to spray into the corners, along the back wall, into the nooks and crannies, onto the perches. I'm going to give that a second to soak in. Now, what I'm quite pleased with so far, and that just I think shows you the lengths that we do go to keep the canary room tip top, is that there isn't a big flood of green anywhere. There's a little bit around the cage front here, and that's really all that's about visible in there, and that's because we do keep on top of this. We do keep it fastidiously clean. You know, I've left some things in there to show for filming today, but it's a daily battle against mite. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip this cage down now. I'm going to wash it down, and then I'm going to clean out the cage furniture, and I'm going to leave it empty for the time being. So I'll do that very quickly. I'm sure we'll film it, and then we'll show you the final solutions that we use just in time for the end of this week's top tips. So what we're going to do now is, these are just all-purpose antibacterial wipes. You can get them from pretty much any major supermarket. I'm going to take one of these down and out. These are hinted with orange. It doesn't really make any difference. We're going to wipe round the cage. You can see that we've not seen a great deal of, or any in fact, green, which is a really good sign. So, you know, we know that there were some mite there. We saw them. So we give the back of the cage a scrub. We give the floor a scrub. We're getting all the nooks and crannies with this. And that's pretty much done for us now. I always check the wipes. There's nothing on the wipe. We're going to give the cage a light spray. Now, we've seen in previous episodes how we use the Dettol, the lavender oil Dettol. We're going to give the cage a light spray with a product that we also use on the birds, which is this avian insect liquidator. I am still not convinced with this product, I have to say. It isn't bad. It will, over a period of time, dry the mite out, but it doesn't kill them on contact. It does, however, work over a period of time, and that's why I continue to use it. So we've got Taylor, who's with us today, who's slightly out of shot, is going to pass me the second one along. Marvellous. That's the one, thank you. It's just made up in a can here, and a spray here. It's on a light spray at the moment. This doesn't matter if it goes on the birds. I wouldn't spray it on the young birds, but I'm just going to give a light spray around the cage, like so. So that's that product, and then I'm going to finish off with a canary room favourite. It's the puffer and our diatomic earth. So I'm going to give that a little scoot around. Again, that's supposed to dry out the birds. I'm going to leave that to dry for a couple of minutes before I do, otherwise it'll just stick all over the cage. Oh, we've sprayed the cage. We've got our puffer now. I'm going to just go down into the crevices and the cracks in between the perches. I'll go on top there. They go into all the holes to fix in place, and then I'll spray into the holes in the cages. And again, it's about vigilance. It's about keeping on top of things. I'll give the cage a spray, give a spray in the corners. You can see there's a cloud in there now. That will form a film on the cage that the mite are not supposed to like. I'm not going to put any cage furniture in here yet. I'll put that cage in there. I'm not going to need it for a couple of days, before I use it again, I'll give it another treatment through, and then I'll move the birds into it. That's this week's top tips. That's how we try and battle against mite in the canary room. We're going now around the room again. So for the 5 canaries in the canary room and the razzers, which are on eggs again, we're coming towards the end of the season. I'm finishing relatively early this year, and that's on the hope that, you know, we've got some good numbers. I'm looking to molt the birds out as quickly as possible, and then get the birds ready for the show season. Obviously, we have got more rounds that we're taking, so a little bit more of that in a second, and we're going to check some of the nests because I think we might have some more eggs. We've got reds up above me, but you can see now the show birds, the birds that I think are starting to show potential, I'm pairing off. So I've pulled a couple of birds out from the flight cage that I like the look of. You can see in this cage here, we've got a little dark yellow hen. That was a former bird of the week, and there's a little variegated in there as well. That's bred out of the cinnamon carrying yellow cock. I like the look of both of those birds. There's a cinnamon in the cage next to it. There's a couple of the darks in the cage behind me, which I really like. And a former bird of the week, in fact, last week's bird of the week, we've taken out and we've singled that bird off as well. We put it with another bird there. So we'll have a quick look at these and then we'll go and check for eggs. So we're going to check some of the nests now. We're into the final knock-ins really with the canaries. The red, slightly unorthodox and slightly out of shot, has actually built a nest in the corner of the cage on the floor, which is slightly unorthodox. We may put a pan in there just while she's finished the clutch. I'm going to put my hand in. I'm not going to take the egg away actually if there is one there. I'm just going to leave it for the time being. So I'll check that in now. No, there's nothing there yet, but it looks like she will lay in the next day or so. What I probably will do though is leave the eggs, as I've just said. She won't sit tight until the last day. Looking forward to getting some more reds out of them. Certainly wouldn't set anything else really in the corner of the cage. It's just too risky. We've got some other pairs that we've put together. Our greens, as we know, have been quite late starting. I've got a couple of pairs that we've put back together to try and just get one more round from. So gonna check in cage 17 and 18 to see if they've laid, because they've built up in the last couple of days, and fingers crossed they have. Let's take a look. That's great news. There are still young in there. We'll take them away in the next couple of days, but she's laid again, which is really good news for us. The cockbird is in with her, so we'll take that egg away. We'll pop it in our collection here, which is all over the place. We'll just pop it in our egg drawer for now. That's really good news. I'm pleased that bird's laid again. I imagine that the other 2 hens that have both been mated up in cages 11 and 12 will also look to lay again soon. Let's have a quick look in cage 17. And that's great news as well. So there's another egg in there, which is lovely. This hen has hatched young for me. I've not got anything out of her yet. We'll put that in our egg drawer here in the hope that she does yield some young for us at some stage. So what we've got now is chicks in cage 1, chicks in cage 7, chicks in cage 14, 11, 12, 6 and 18, and cage 10. As the season comes to a close, we've got a hen on eggs in cage 5 and in cage 9. 17 and 18 are now laying. I'll take another round from 11 and 12 I'm looking for cage 15 and cage 13 to go down again, and then that will wrap the season up. At the moment, there's around about 55 young in the Canary room at various different ages. That's, you know, a great figure for us, particularly when we consider the challenges that we had last year. If we end up between sort of 60 and 70, I'll be absolutely delighted. Any more than that, we may end up having to build some more cages. That's our last look around the room for today. Coming up next, it's question time. So we've only got time for one question on today's show. It's coming from Jana Simpson. Jana, thanks very much. It's coming through Facebook. I wonder if you can give me some advice. I'm a new breeder. I have 2 pairs of canaries, but neither of them have started breeding. They are definitely male and female, and the males sing a lot, but the females don't seem to respond. Occasionally they flap to be fed, but that's it. I believe I've tried everything, but the females just don't seem to be interested. Do you have some advice, please? Jana, thank you very much for taking the time to contact the show. It's a great question. Where to start, really? You know, if you've got male and female birds, the males will normally drive the hens into condition. If they're together all the time, though, it can be that they get almost too used to each other. So the first thing that I'd suggest, Jana, is that you separate the birds off. You give the hens baths, you give them some green food, you give them some egg food if you're not doing already, and you sort of take the cockbirds away, and you build a sort of appetite, if you like. At this time of year, they should be in full breeding conditions. What you don't say in your message, unfortunately, is how old the birds are. If they're young hens, it could just be that they've not reached the sexual maturity yet. That being the case, you know, you may have to wait until next year. There are times when, regardless of the environment, birds just won't breed. We've had it in the Canary room this year with a blue hen. You know, she's had exactly the same conditioning as every other bird in the Canary room. Every other bird, all the canaries have laid for us. The blue hen has got absolutely no interest, not picked up a piece of string. With birds like that, you just have to shrug your shoulders and wait till next year, I'm afraid. I hope that answers your question. As I say, that's all we've got time for today. Don't forget you can get in touch with the show through our Facebook page or email us at info@thecanaryroom.tv. Sending your questions, very happy to answer them. You can catch up with us on Facebook. In between episodes, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter too. Until next time, take care. Let's put my coffee down. C for the Canary room. Buy them online. Right, should we start now? No? Okay, that's good. It's a good one now, wasn't it? Worked well, went really well. You'll know that in the last episode they dropped the scissors. Cut!